All right, guys, it is Friday, April the 16th. I said that we wouldn't have a lecture today, but I changed my mind. So we are going to have a little bit of a lecture today, continuing corporations, simply because I extended the deadline for your website. So we need to make sure that we continue our notes. That way we can get as much in before exams. So at the beginning of class, I had the students to go to Google and find out the stock price for a company that you would like to invest in. And several kids just Googled Nike stock, Walmart stock, and then they found the price. So this is actually Google stock. The name of Google for investing is Alphabet, and shares of Google stock or Alphabet stock are $2,200 a share. $2,284.92 per share of Google stock. Very, very expensive. Yeah, so that's what we did at the beginning of class. We shared some of those just to kind of see, what companies are selling their stock at. Now for our new stuff. So like I said, we're going to continue with corporations. Today, specifically public corporations. So with a public corporation, remember you can invest your money with these companies. And when the companies make money, you make money. When the companies are losing money, you're losing money. Because when you invest in a company, what you're doing is you're telling them that you're giving them permission to spend your money however you see fit. And if the company spends your money wisely, and if customers are buying their products and their services, then you make money. If they are wasting your money and the value of the products and services goes down, there's no demand, then you will lose money in the stock market. So how corporations are owned. Public corporations are owned and controlled not only by like the leadership, like the CEO, CFO, COO, and the board of directors and the managers. They're also controlled by us. We are called shareholders, also called stockholders. When you invest in a public corporation, you become part owner of that company. The more shares of stock, so the more pieces of that company that you buy, the more control you have over that company, the more power you have in its decision. So a stockholder or a shareholder owns a little piece of the company. You can either trade online yourself by opening up, let's say, an account on TD Ameritrade, or you can contact a stockbroker and they will actually advise you and they'll do the transactions for you if you don't feel comfortable. But just know that you'll have to pay a stockbroker a fee for their services just like you would any other company. So I would suggest that you learn enough about it, do some research to do it yourself because you can and it's free. Now, when you invest in certain companies, you will have what's called voting rights. So companies that sell what's called common stock, they allow their shareholders to vote on decisions. So let's say that I own shares of stock in Nike. And Nike is planning for this big expansion into maybe a new country in the Middle East. So Nike will send me a letter in the mail and ask me to vote yes or no on that decision. Now, if I have 50 shares of Nike stock and I say, yeah, let's go ahead with that move. I think it's a great thing to do. I think it's a great idea. Then my one vote, my one yes counts 50 times. So yes, 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 that counts 50 times. So the more shares, the more common shares that you own with a company, the more your vote counts. And you get one vote per each share. So if I own 2,000 shares, my vote, my yes, counts 2,000 times. All right, so this pie chart is a little old, but for the sake of explaining, this works very well. So this whole pie chart would represent Facebook. The blue this represents the amount of Facebook that the employees own. So the staff of Facebook owns 30% of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, which is the original CEO, the original founder, he owns 24% of Facebook. So he owns this red share. So technically, if these people in pink, so if Dustin, Sean, Eduardo, Digital Skies Technology, Goldman Sachs, if all these other people vote no on a decision for Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg votes yes, his vote only counts as 24%. So technically, even though he's the original owner, his vote could be outweighed by the other shareholders. So technically, Mark Zuckerberg could potentially be fired from his own company. Because if all these people decide that Mark Zuckerberg is not leading Facebook in the right direction, they could vote him out. So they could put a motion before the table to say, we feel like that Mark Zuckerberg should not be CEO and president of Facebook any longer. Vote yes, vote no. Vote yay, vote nay. And if you've got 76% that want him out, and then his vote counts as 24%, 76 is a lot more than 24. So Mark Zuckerberg would be fired and he would have to step down as CEO of Facebook. Pretty crazy, huh? So your advantages of a corporation. Money, capital is very easy to obtain. So money is very easy for these companies to get their hands on because everybody around the world has the opportunity to invest with these companies. So you don't have to be an American citizen to own stock in McDonald's. Anybody globally can invest in McDonald's Incorporated. And because there's millions of people that are investing in these companies have access to all these people, to their money, to the money that they're willing to invest. Now, another advantage is that the liability, the responsibility is spread over hundreds of people. So there's not just one person making all the decisions. There's not just two people making all the decisions. All the shareholders, the directors, the managers, all those people that own shares of stock in that company make decisions. So the liability is spread across a lot of different people. That's why there's limited liability with these companies, with these corporations. Of course, they offer virtual services, Cash App, PayPal, just like you can with a sole proprietorship or a partnership. And then lastly, the cool thing about a corporation is that it can last forever. So these corporations that have been around for, let's say almost 100 years. So companies like Nike and Walmart, Adidas, McDonald's, all of those original entrepreneurs could die, or they possibly are already deceased, but the company is still alive and well and thriving. So corporations have the possibility of an unlimited lifetime because they're not controlled by the original entrepreneur anymore. They're controlled by the board of directors, leadership team, and shareholders. So I use the example of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs died in 2011. He was the original entrepreneur of Apple. Apple is still alive today. You guys buy Apple cell phones all the time. So Apple has a chance of an unlimited lifetime, regardless of what happened to Steve Jobs. Now, your bad things about corporations. Before I go into this, let me read this quote at the top by Steve Jobs. It says, "The wisdom of Steve Jobs. Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life." So it's kind of crazy that Steve Jobs got fired from his own company, but he acts like it was a blessing. During that time when he was fired, he actually developed Pixar. which is kind of cool. Yeah. Pixar movies, animations. Yeah, kind of cool. But anyway, so your downside or your disadvantages to corporations. Public corporations are taxed twice. What I mean by that, everybody pays taxes at least, once a year or throughout the year, depending on how they've got them set up. So corporations are taxed the same way in the sense of on their income. So any income that they've got coming in, if they have a profit, so if they're making more money than they're spending, they'll be taxed on that money. And then also you and I, if we own shares of stock in that company, we are also taxed. So any money that I make in the stock market each year, that money is taxed. So I give that information to my accountant so she can look at it and then file it on my taxes. So the company itself is taxed, and then the people that actually own shares of stock in the company are taxed on their income as well. So that's why corporations are considered to be double taxed. Also, the government regulates these companies with a fine-tooth comb because these companies are so powerful. Think about the number of employees that Walmart has. So when companies become huge and they're very powerful, the government keeps a close eye on them and they regulate them in so many areas. I mean, just think about like the environment. Do you know how much waste these huge companies have every day? Just think about the boxes that come into Walmart with stuff in them, like the boxes for the televisions and the boxes for all the grocery items. The government forces those companies to recycle. That's just one example of a government regulation. And then your operations, of course, are controlled by your shareholders and your board of directors, no longer by the original entrepreneur. And then I gave you that little blurb about Steve Jobs for the example. 10 years after founding Apple, Steve Jobs was demoted by the board of directors. Demoted just means asked to step down by the board of directors because they felt he was leading the Macintosh division of the company in the wrong direction. The CEO owns a certain percentage of the company, and so do the other board members. If the board members' ownership totals more than that CEO, they can vote him or her out because the majority rules. All right, and then your last disadvantage of your corporations, just remember that you still do have liabilities, so there's still a bunch of responsibilities with your corporations, but your director and your officers have to vote. So sometimes it's hard to agree to disagree, and it's hard for everybody to come to a consensus on one idea. So it's hard to get decisions made with these large companies sometimes because you could have 50-50 saying yes, saying no. So half the people saying yes, half the people saying no. You got to have a majority. Sometimes it takes a long time for decisions to be pushed through with a corporation. And this is your last slide. So how is a corporation terminated? It does have the potential of lasting forever. It does have the potential of having an unlimited lifetime. So just understand that most corporations end up dissolving if they're bought out, of course, by another company and they change their name, or they file bankruptcy and go out of business. And then they get their investments from shareholders. So public corporations get their money from us, the general public, when we invest in their stock. And that's what we covered for today. Be sure to go into Canvas and do your exit ticket April the 16th. Work on your Wix or Weebly website, and I'll see you guys Monday. Remember, your website due date has been pushed back to Thursday, April the 22nd, because we were having technical difficulties with that. So just know that you've got until this Thursday to turn in your website. Have a good weekend. I'll see you guys Monday.